5 of our Vote Builder certification course. Today we are going to be talking about scripts um, when you are doing voter contact, whether you're calling voters, knocking their doors, running a text bank, even relational organizing. Having a script is really important to make sure you stay on message, know what to say, as well as being able to get in any pertinent information that's going to help your campaign, like IDs, yard sign requests that you can later follow up on. So one of the things I will say is that uh, with your script, you want to make sure you're using strong messaging. The stronger, more direct message that you have, the better. Don't be wishy-washy whenever you're writing these. And definitely make sure before you, again, start doing any voter contact, you have a script and you're not having to create it on the fly at 11 o'clock at night, the night before your first phone banking session or door knock. When it comes to the scripts that I create here, whenever we set up committees and get folks up and running in cycle, I'm just including the bare basic components. That's going to be, well, we'll talk about it in a later. But more or less, it doesn't have campaign messaging. So the standard script template, whenever I throw together these scripts for folks, is going to be your standardized candidate support question. So the 1 through 5 with the 6 and the 7 question is going to be the very first question we put in this script, followed by a volunteer ask and a yard sign ask. Don't want to pretend to know the message of the candidates, but I want to make sure there is a bare bones structure for folks to start out with where they can plug in their messaging, their flow for the script, and be able to sort of have something to work with instead of having nothing to work with. So what things do we want to add to a script? The very first thing that I tell folks, and we'll see a finished script after this is all over, actually. But when you're writing these scripts, especially for volunteers, think of everything that needs to be in there so there is not a lot of things they have to think of, oh, should I say this or this or this? So with that, an introduction of who of an introduction that's asking for the voter, identifying the volunteer, and who they are volunteering with. So in this example, I have hi is voter. So hi, is Mary Jane available? My name is Harry, and I'm a volunteer with Peter Parker for City Council. Have you heard of Peter yet? Huge Spider-Man fan. Wanted to give folks something interesting as a template. So with that, we're making sure we're identifying who the voter specifically is. That way we can mark them as not home or refused, moved. So if you were talking to Mary Jane and she said yes, you could go on with the rest of the script. If you got someone that was not Mary Jane at the door, you could still have a conversation with them about the candidate, but you would not want to mark responses in Vote Builder or on the paper packet, on the phone bank, in Minivan, as if you're talking to Mary Jane, because it is not Mary Jane. So that's why asking and making sure you're getting the right voter is important. My name is volunteer. So my name is Harry, for instance. You are identifying who you are, and I'm a volunteer with Peter Parker for City Council. So that way you are giving them a name to the face that you are talking to, and you're also giving them an idea of which candidate you are with, what they're running for, because ideally you're going to be hammering this into their brain a couple of times to increase name ID. So then the have you heard of Peter yet, for instance, can sort of branch out if they've heard of Peter. You can go into sort of great, do you plan on supporting him, yada, 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 stuff like that. So more of the main points that you want to have from the conversation. If they haven't, for instance, you can sort of go into the next section. I have a powerful message describing the candidate, their platform, qualifications. So giving the voter a little bit of a synopsis of who the candidate is, what they stand for. So in this one, rolling with the Peter Parker running for city council. Peter was born and raised here in Queens and is an accomplished leader and scientist in the tech industry, having started his own company, Parker Industries, that employs thousands worldwide in solving our 21st century needs. Peter will fight to protect our public education and expand access to STEM curriculum in our schools, prioritizing investments in local entrepreneurs, and making sure all residents have access to affordable housing. So, first section is establishing he is from the community, and this is what he has done. So born and raised in Queens, running for Queens City Council or New York City Council, automatically gives folks, hey, they're from here, we can trust them, sort of feeling. Accomplished leader and scientist in the tech industry, having started his own company, yada, yada, yada. Not only are they from here, they have a good career, they are established, they have accomplished a lot, and this is sort of the thing that will let folks, some of the words and things that will let folks know, hey, what they've done in their career, they can now apply to running for, or they can now apply to representing us. That type of mindset is what we want to get, is what you should be thinking of when you're writing these scripts. And then the will fight for, that is what their main issues are. You can always go in depth with the issues. This is where they stand on public education and STEM specifically, yada, yada, yada. But given an idea of what the main issues are, like protecting and expanding access in public education, let you know they're going to fight for public education. They're not going to be for charter schools. Prioritizing investments in local entrepreneurs, small business, affordable housing, making sure probably the theoretical skyrocketing costs of living are not going to negatively impact folks in that area. Those types of things, give it to them in nuggets, for instance, and then expand on it as needed. So once you've done the intro, given them a little bit of information, the next part of the script will go, great, does he sound like someone you can support? And that's going to be your standard candidate ID. So yes, no. However, if they come back undecided, like, that sounds great, just don't know who I'm going to vote for. The issue of Spider-Man is something I'm really, really want to know how he stands. If you're a Spider-Man fan, the people love him, but some of the media don't. So being able to build that, be able to build issues into your script, that way you can give the candidate stance like that, is really going to be beneficial. So if the person is undecided and really cares about Spider-Man, yeah, Peter believes Spider-Man is a vital, positive part of our community. He recognizes the vigilante, gets a lot of flack for the events that happen in our community, but Spidey's always there to lend a helping hand, saving cats from trees, preventing dangerous criminals from causing further damage. So trying to address their question head on, give the candidate's stance to be able to persuade the voter, or at least let them know, you might be undecided, but here's how he stands. How do you feel? That type of thing. So that was some of the components that are in a script that folks should be thinking of when they're writing it. How do you edit a script is what we're going to talk about now. So in Vote Builder, and I will go over to mine right now, actually, and we will do this together. Nope. let's just go to the training committee since that's the one we were talking about. So when you get to your main page, if you have the right permissions levels, you'll be able to scroll down here to admin menu. And a couple down, you'll see codes, questions, and scripts. Select this, and it'll open another drop down, and you'll see scripts down here at the very bottom. If you go to this section, you don't see it, you probably don't have the right permission levels. And we have that in place to make sure there's not like 100 different scripts that are floating out there in Vote Builder when folks really need to use one or two main ones. So select scripts. You will see I have the 2020 VAN webinar, 2020 VAN webinar certification. So we're going to select this one, and you'll see its name, description, active, which committee it belongs in, what script type it is, and you'll see sort of an overview of our script that we were just going through together. Section 1, the introduction. Section 2, the pivot of if they know him or not. Section 3, going into our candidate ID. Section 4 is going to be that talking point we went over. You can have a couple of these as you want, a volunteer question after that, and a yard sign question. So let's say we wanted to add a additional talking point voter question. So let's say voter question, what would be a good one that's Spidey related? This is a good question. How does Peter feel about Mayor Osborne? So we're going to just go with this one. So how does Peter feel about Mayor Osborne? Talking point. Peter looks forward to working with Mayor Osborne as the two have been connected for years thanks to Mayor Osborne's son, Harry, being friends with Peter since high school. So one that's definitely off the top of my head, but you can sort of see if you have the text answer, something like that you need to put in there, you're just going to use this text button, and you can drag and drop as you need to move it around. If you need to add another survey question or something like that, so let's just say the commit the vote, you would just hit add here, be able to drag it up here. So let's just say it's going to be right after our ID. So great, they're going to support Peter. How would they do it, for instance? And if you needed to add an activist code, so if they would want to be a neighborhood leader, just hit that, add, drag and drop wherever it needs to be. And once you have done all of that, you'll be able to add as much information as you need. In this section, you can delete sections as needed. So if we want to take out the neighborhood leader activist code, we could. From there, once you've got everything that you need, you just hit save, and that will save it. So going back here, we've went in through all of those sections. Again, the section where you add stuff is called the add script element. I think we went through all this fairly quickly in the last screen share, but when it comes to the text section, just put things in here like intros, talking points for volunteers to use. If you need to add survey questions, which is the information, survey questions or activist code that you actually want to select, please make sure there's that survey question exists or activist code exists. If not, let us know. We can add it. I think we talked about data standards a little bit. There will probably need to be a little bit of, hey, how is this going to be used? That way we make sure it's standardized, can get into the system right, and then once that's done, you'll be able to implement it in. But more or less, text if it's not information that you necessarily need to collect, survey questions and activist codes if it's data that you are collecting. One thing that we brushed over that's really important are script types. So there are two. Linear is more or less as we saw it on the screen. All of it's going to print out and or appear as we saw on the screen. All of that's going to be printed out, or it is going to appear in the app that you're using, whether it's pertinent information or not. This is the standard script type. If you want to use branch, this is, you can feel free, but it's only going to work for open virtual phone banks. So it's not going to work for virtual phone banks if you're calling from inside of Vote Builder. And Minivan, so the app on your phone to do door knocking. Branch script is more or less saying this is logic based. So for instance, if in the script that we've been discussing, if it is a support Peter, then we could move on to a volunteer ask or yard sign ask. However, if they're undecided on Peter, we would move on to the talking points type of thing. So it's very logic based. I would say always have at least one linear script just to be safe. And if you want to experiment with branched, you can, but linear is probably the one that you're going to use the most. So after all of that that we've done and built, this is what the final script is going to look like. So just going top to bottom, we see that we have the introduction statement. We have the overview on the candidate if they don't know who he is. We have the support question, the talking point, volunteer ask, yard sign. Some scripts can have more than this, but this is a really good starting place and what a lot of folks will probably use. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this segment up. There's going to be a quiz to go over everything. There's going to be the slide deck will be available to folks. And I'll also probably add some supplemental materials, including some scripts that are more real world, that folks can sort of see what some other folks' scripts have looked like in the past. With that, I'll go ahead and let us go. Now that we've got up to scripts, we're going to move into cutting turf, doing some phone banks, getting all of that set up so that now we can actually do voter contact. So I will see everyone in that next section. Have a good day.